the classic immigrant story, but in real life, like have a couple $100 in their pocket, had to make it, and then watching them work super hard to get to like a little bit better of a thing, and kind of like move that forward. That was transformational for sure.
This is the Insurance Technology Podcast, where we bring interesting people from across the insurance ecosystem to discuss and debate technology's impact on the industry. Join us each episode for insights and best practices from industry stewards and tomorrow's innovators. Now, here's your host, Reid Holsworth.
Welcome to the Insurance Technology Podcast. I'm your host, Reid Holsworth. In this episode, I'm going to be interviewing Alan Ringvald. Alan is the CEO and co-founder of Relativity6. I recently met Alan at Insurtech Boston, where we were at a dinner the night before. And Alan was just such a humble, cool dude. But as you started to kind of unravel his story and he started to open up some, just fascinating. And what's interesting as you listen to these episodes is you'll hear it. Like what I learned from Alan and about his life in those short moments prior to these interviews was a very small piece of his overall life. It's amazing what this guy has done and what he's been through. Stay tuned. You're really going to enjoy it. Alan, welcome.
Reid, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So Relativity6, for those that don't know, what does Relativity6 do?
Yep. Great question. So we try to keep it simple. We're really focused on kind of one thing, one type of data point, and that's business industry classification. So what does that mean? It's basically we're focused on understanding what a business actually does. And it's not what the business did when they started their company. It's not what the business did when they filed that D&B number. It's not what the business did last year. It's what is the business doing right now? What are the primary activities of that company today? That's what we're focused on.
Are you a data company?
Wow, I didn't think we were going to get so deep so early, Reid. Jeez.
We'll come back to that.
Yeah. But let's come back to it because that's
all right. We'll come back to that.
So,
So, Alan, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah.
Where are you from? Where are you born?
Yeah.
Where are your parents from? Give us a little background on
for sure.
your history. Yeah.
I was actually born in Israel. My mom's Israeli, and my dad's Uruguayan, actually. So they're completely different cultures. I was born there, and then a couple months later, we actually moved to Uruguay. So I lived there kind of as a toddler. And then I moved to the U.S. when I was, I think, like 4 years old. So English is kind of like my third language, actually. And yeah.
That's awesome. So then what brought you to the States? If you don't mind me asking.
No, of course. So my dad applied to like 15 business schools all over the world. He was a young guy, and he got into one, which was Boston University. So we were supposed to be here for 2 years, and we just kind of stayed.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
What a great place to be. So you grew up in Boston then?
I did. Yeah,
basically.
definitely. Yeah, that's where I
in the city or outside or?
Actually, right in the city. So, he went to BU, Boston University, which is right in the city. My parents were really young, early 20s when they had me and when they were kind of getting started. So we didn't have much money and kind of started off in some, the dorms. I actually grew up, like I remember like the BU dorms, kind of living there. And then studio apartment, then 1-bedroom apartment, then 1 bedroom in a little bit better part of town. That we kind of like made our way outside the city. But it took a while. So I kind of grew up kind of seeing the grind from my parents, not having too much and then working really hard to make it.
Ultimately, what did your parents end up doing for a living?
Yeah. So my mom, being an Israeli person, she basically could only get a job as a Hebrew teacher, of course. And she ended up actually getting a really good job at Brandeis University, which is a pretty, it has like a bit of a Jewish identity and like a Hebrew program. So she kind of started there, and she ended up working her way up, getting a PhD and kind of really professionalizing that industry.
Wow.
And kind of becoming like a like a professor within like linguistics and like a focus on Hebrew and some other language acquisition type stuff. So she did that. My dad, kind of like a finance guy, and he ended up, honestly, like when he started coming up in Boston, it was a pretty racist town. It kind of still is, I'd say, in some ways. But his name's Miguel, and being named Miguel back in the 80s was not that cool. So he couldn't really get a job at like a big bank or anything. So he ended up kind of finding his way into microfinance, which is basically, financing, kind of working with the World Bank and then financing like small businesses all over Latin America and kind of that way. So like giving them loans and stuff like that. So yeah.
That microfinance world is there's a big addressable market with that.
Massive.
It's not as big here in the States, but like elsewhere.
Yeah, for sure.
It's massive.
It's massive. And what people don't realize is like there's an insane rate of return because it's like a community focused business where a lot of different people come together and they kind of do like have peer pressure to succeed and do well. And it actually legitimately like is a very good investment. But like you said, it's not popular here. Or it wasn't. Like Kiva was kind of the first company that quote unquote made it cool back in the day. Yeah. So, but it was cool because growing up, he would work in kind of every poorer Latin American country, and he would take me on a lot of those trips. So
no kidding.
Yeah,
like
to
where?
All over Brazil, a lot in Peru, Colombia, countries like that, and he would take me along, like go to the farms or go to these like small manufacturers and just expose me to that world, which was like super cool. So yeah.
That's really awesome. Then did your dad speak Spanish? I assume.
Yeah, he does. He's Uruguayan, and he was able to speak to me in Spanish growing up. So I was able to get that language. And then my mom, speaking Hebrew, was able to give me Hebrew. So
that's cool. That's pretty cool, man. That's really cool. So like, how old were you when you were doing those trips with your dad?
I started when I was probably like 12 and like all the way through college. I loved those trips, like remote parts of Brazil, like through like not like Rio or like Sao Paulo or anything, like really remote areas. We'd like, drive for days to get to a location, and you just get to see a different type of world, really. So he exposed me to that really early, and I definitely ingrained that within me.
That's like, that would be transformational to an adult, but as a child, you're growing up in that and seeing that.
Exactly.
Do you think that kind of, and this is kind of an obvious question, it's maybe a dumb question, but molded you into who you are today? I mean, seeing that and being involved in that and traveling to all these different places and these different cultures and living in that. And then your dad's there to basically help these companies in these small communities, and therefore help these communities grow in a big way.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think that had a big part of it. I think watching my parents grind it out, like from having, it's the classic immigrant story, but in real life, like have a couple $100 in their pocket, had to make it, and then watching them work super hard to get to like a little bit better of a thing, and kind of like move that forward. That was transformational for sure. Kind of instilled the work ethic that I think you have to be able to make it in, what it is that I'm doing now.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, it's wow. That's pretty amazing. You've been to a lot of cool places. All that sounds like. So all that said, what was your favorite hobby, sport? What kind of stuff were you into as a kid?
Yeah, man, I was love playing sports. My dad, actually, it's funny because, we grew up here, but my dad's from Uruguay. And I was like, Dad, can I join Little League? He's like, no, like, because he would see these guys on TV, like these closers, be huge, and he's like, you're big enough, you gotta run around a little bit. So I focused more on like soccer was my big sport, but all sports, like I was like that was what I did. I was always on a field, from like I'd be playing basketball all day, soccer all day, football. anything. Like that was my number one hobby. And I was pretty sure I was going to be a pro soccer player when I grew up. And I had that like horrific feeling that happens to all young athletes when they like leave their town and go somewhere else and like realize there's much better athletes than in your immediate area. And you're like, oh, okay, that's not going to happen. But that was always kind of like what I was sure that I was going to be involved in pro sports in some way. I was like obsessed.
But it didn't work out. Didn't happen.
It did not. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah.
So then what'd you do? So did you go to school? You went to college? Like, tell us about that.
Yeah, man, I did. So I actually ended up going to the college where my mom taught at because of how cheap that was, right? Like she was, it's basically free, which was great. I did end up taking any of her classes, which I regret. But I went to college, but honestly, I didn't participate too much on the academic side.
So you went to college, but you didn't really do anything?
So here's what I did do. I didn't do much schoolwork, to be fair. But really early on, like freshman, sophomore year, I had this insight that like, I was like, like there's all these kids here and they're really lazy. And there's also like tons of like vendors right outside the school, laundromats, like restaurants, like, you name it, all these small businesses. And I was like, and I'm dating myself, Reid, but this is like 2002. And it was like, can I make a portal so that students could connect with all these small businesses? And can I make some money doing that? So I started this company called College Bellhop back in the day, doing just that. It was like, it's funny because it like made the news because it was an e-commerce company, if you can believe it. Because like we could accept payments online, which is nuts. And yeah, I like grew that to like 15 schools by the time I was a senior. Wow. So I spent a lot of time working actually.
Were you generating revenue from it?
Yeah, a decent amount actually.
Just like advertising revenue, or how'd you monetize it?
It was subscription based, and we would just take a percentage of each transaction that we would do. And at the same time, it was cool because you're helping out all these small businesses around the school that didn't know how to connect with the students.
Oh yeah, totally.
So it was fun. I actually sold it right as I graduated college, which was awesome. Probably the like quote unquote easiest company that I've ever done. And I was like, oh, this is easy. I'm going to keep doing this. But yeah, so didn't do much schoolwork. Sorry if anyone's listening from Brandeis. Great school, but wasn't my focus at all. I was just wanting to get on the hustle and get doing stuff.
College is a fun time, man. I have a buddy. It's a funny story. I have one of my really best friends. He went to a Marquette University, which is a great school.
For sure. Great school.
And he's like, there's like pictures of him and like the halls, like, and stuff. He never actually went there. He just like weaseled his way into the dorms.
Yeah.
Like he met somebody and said he was somebody, and he like lived there on campus.
I love it.
Like a couple of years.
That's literally a Steve Jobs story right there.
It's crazy. Yeah. It's a cute story.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
That's crazy. I love it. I respect that.
All that dude did was just party and had fun.
That's good. That's what you should do.
Right?
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
It's a good time in your life to do so, right?
For sure.
Yeah. It's funny. I mean, I don't know. I think college is good for a lot of things, but at that age, do people really know what they want to do?
No, honestly, I don't this is probably a super tangent, but I think 95% of kids are not ready to go to college at that age, and they should be like working or like doing something else and then coming back. So I ended up going to grad school, and that's when I was like, oh, I see. Like, this is cool. There's professors and I'm learning. But it took years to actually appreciate that. I think if you just go from high school straight to college, it's like you assume that that's what everyone does, and you don't really realize what a privilege it is to just be like hanging out and like homework. Like, what a great fun, like, I know it sounds crazy, but it's like you get to like learn more about stuff, like, and you have professors that actually like know what they're talking about. that's cool. So, in my opinion, college is generally not at the right time.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's you got to have that thirst for knowledge, right?
Exactly. You do.
And then you want to follow your path throughout that, because then you're passionate about it. I mean, I know everybody knows this story. I mean, how many people? Everybody knows somebody who went to school for 8 years and has hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt to be an attorney or whatever it is, and they're like, I hate this job, and then they're like, working in some completely different, and it's just, and so that everybody, but I think it's good overall. I think for some people in certain areas, I mean, you grew up in Boston too. You were exposed to a lot. Yeah. I mean, you especially were exposed to a lot, dealing with your dad and traveling all over the world. But, for some, it's you get out of an environment, you go to another one and you do the thing and whatnot. But I don't know if college really dictates what you truly become as an adult and your career path. And some people may be mad at me about that. I really don't care.
Right.
But I believe it's true, and it's like, I don't have a college education. I didn't do shit. I got like straight F's in high school. I have like a glorified GED, but I went to community college later on and I got 4.0, and I was doing, like you said, all the extra credit, all the stuff. I was like fascinated by
exactly.
It, right? And I never would have done that out of high school. Like,
for
what?
Sure.
Right. I go party with my friends.
For sure. For sure.
And so anyways, I would agree with that. It's a little controversial. You know what's funny though? I was thinking about this the other day. It seems like education and the degree, especially now in like the great resignation and all this stuff, and people are getting, huge amounts of dollars for what they do. It's like, I don't know I mean, as a CEO of Ivans and just doing what I do and, all the stuff that I do, I don't remember the last time it was like, we can't hire them because they don't have a degree.
Right. And I'm glad, honestly. Yeah. Like, I'll tell you though, like, I worked at Google back in the day. Like, so my next job my first real job was like Google, I guess, like once I sold my company. And that was crazy because at the time they were like, what are your SAT scores? And like, what school did you go? They changed that which was like 5 years ago, they finally changed that. But at the time, I thought that was honestly one of the stupidest things ever, because they missed out on so much talent.
That's right.
It's like, as a kid, if you make a couple bad choices as like a teenager that can impact your like adulthood, that just makes no sense to me. So yeah.
It's what year was that roughly when you went to work for Google?
2006.
Yeah, 2000. Yeah. So that's still when it was like super cool to work at Google. What was that like?
Dude, it was crazy. Dude, it was nuts. Tell us.
I want to hear it.
It was like, okay, so it was like right post IPO, which was weird.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so there's like a weird energy in the air because, a lot of people had just made an incredible amount of life-changing money. So you're like, I'm sitting next to someone who's like, looking for like yachts and like incredible cars, and I'm like sitting here making like okay money, but like not like that. It's like, dude, it's crazy. And then there was just like literally my first week there, they took the entire company. I was in Mountain View to Tahoe to some 5-star resort for like a week. It wasn't a holiday time or anything. Did it, and it was just insane, like funny money, crazy chaos, not much organization. I jumped around departments constantly. It was like kind of lived in that chaos, which I love. But things weren't like, it was just, the Google itself had, found product market fit, as they say, with the, with AdWords, with like the, like monetizing search.
That's right.
And so it was a money machine. And so like and I think I got there right as that like was really like, scaling and going crazy. Like they'd hire like thousands of people a week. It's just like, like crazy. So it got so big so fast. And that's actually what the turnoff was, to be honest with you, about it. Was it got too big. It got so big, it got to the point where it's like I wasn't sure that anybody knew that I was like alive there. Like there's just like, you didn't need to be there. Like it was kind of taking care of itself in many ways. Like a lot of smart people actually, like that was kind of the problem also is, I say probably it's like anyone around me went to Princeton, Harvard, Yale, Stanford, blah, blah, blah. And the funny thing is they all tried to be humble about it. I'd ask like, oh, what school do you go to? And they'd say, oh, I went to school in Connecticut, which meant like Yale, or like, oh, I went to school in Boston, which meant like Harvard. And then, so I started being like, oh, I went to school in Boston. So people would think I went
Dude, you know what's funny is like me I don't have formal education, like I said.
Yeah.
And early on in my career, I felt like so ashamed. Like people would be like, what school did you go to? And I'm like, oh, like I kind of would like lie about it, honestly.
Right.
Because like, it's like I've been in so many circles at so many dinner parties or whatever, where it's like a pissing match, right? Oh, I went here. Oh, we went here. Oh, I went there. It's like, and it's not just because like they went there and they're just saying it. You know what I'm talking about? Like, I do. It becomes this thing, and
it's your identity. Yeah,
it is, and it's funny as I got older and I've become more successful. I'm just like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no,
but then they can't say anything. But like, what? Yeah. What? Like, what do you mean? Like how? Like, and it's only because I'm successful and I've been successful that I'm not looked down upon in that moment. Right. Because people do. They still do.
I know. No,
and that's why I'm so down on school. Like I'm just like pissed about that. I don't know.
No, I don't think so. I think you're right. Honestly, it's not that important. I don't think. Like again, like what you did as a 14, 15-year-old should not come back to you as an adult. I don't think. But that's not how our society is currently built. Sadly. So I get it.
You know what's crazy too? I was thinking about back what you said about Google and AdWords and all of that. During that time, that really transformed the world when it comes to marketing.
Oh yeah. Right? Oh yeah.
Advertising, like print, like think of the print and TV and all that stuff. It's like, well, wait a second. I can really target the exact person that I want at the exact moment and bring them into my world.
Yep.
Right.
Game changing. And you can track it, right? Like there's actual ROI to marketing, which is nuts.
So nuts. I mean, those guys, I tell you what, I have a lot of respect for Google. Even now, they're always on the top of their game, still are in their own way. Everything they're doing, GCP and all that, and Looker and all this cool stuff. I mean, those guys, they're badass, dude. They're badass.
For sure. And a lot of respect to the founders for making that happen. And they had opportunities to sell really early and make some decent money, and they like stuck with it. And I can't compare, but like I'm scaling a tech company now, and woof, that's hard. Execution is still hard. Like, and look, like what people don't remember is they were not like AdWords was not the first version of that to exist. Like there were search engines already. They just made it like a cleaner version, like that the experience was better, and like PageRank was really good. But like, is PageRank the reason they won? I don't know, but like it was more than that. And so it's like it was really just like execute. And then AdWords itself, like that product, other companies were doing that. They just put all the pieces together in the right way to make it work. So it wasn't like they didn't grind it out and execute, which I think a lot of people don't realize. So, yeah.
Do you think Google was successful and continues to be successful because they always execute, but they execute at a different level than everybody else?
Exactly, for sure.
You think that's a culture thing? Do you think that has to do with the week trips to Tahoe and stuff like that? I mean, is it just letting people kind of just really think and step out and, focus on the problem?
Maybe. No, I mean, that's how Gmail got started, was just like, a couple guys working there thought about it, thought that'd be interesting, and made it happen in their own independent time there. I think and they were kind of revolutionized the idea of like, it's kind of funny, but the cafeteria idea, or like the free food, which is like, it sounds like whatever, but dude, I mean, I'm sure you've been to like a Google campus, but like, it like blew me away. It's like 5-star meals, and then you think about it, it's like, of course you don't leave campus. You just sit there and talk to your friends who work there, and then good things happen, and that makes sense. But like it, obviously it was super expensive, but they understood the long-term benefit from that when a lot of people didn't. So, I think they did things in a really different way. And obviously a lot of people copy them now, but they were definitely the original.
It's funny. We'll get off this topic in a second, but I did a lot of work early on with a lot of startups in the Silicon Valley area and all of that, and San Francisco, and I spent a lot of time. And there was a lot of companies that kind of copied that model, but they copied it for all the wrong reasons. It's like, let's give them the snacks, let's have the kegs of beer, let's act like we're open and free in that way, but then let's not give them good benefits.
Yep.
and let's not pay them much, right? Let's work them like dogs.
Right.
And again, I think it comes back to what we were saying. It's just the execution in that way and doing what's right.
Exactly.
And it worked. Right.
Yep.
I don't know. Cause I've been there, I've done that. And I've sat there and I've hung out with people in those companies where they're like, this place sucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure, we get like free snacks and whatnot. And I like drinking beer here, but like other than that, it's terrible.
No, for sure. They committed 100% to it. And I think, they still do. It's still a great place to be, and they treat people really well. I think treating people well is kind of the key to everything, honestly, if you really want to make stuff work.
Wow. What an amazing story. Like I said in the beginning of this episode, I didn't know all of this coming into this and just kind of unraveling this guy's life. Maybe it's just because we just passed 4th of July and I'm feeling very patriotic, but I'll tell you what, freaking America. Like, this guy moved here and immigrated here, 4 years old, barely spoke, didn't really speak English at all, ends up traveling the world with his dad through his dad's hard work, drive, and then ends up at Google with a successful career at Google. Oh, and don't let me forget, built a company and had a startup in college. Like, America. I mean, it's amazing. And this guy just continues to truly crush it. It's funny, like, and you've listened to other episodes, people and their drive, and they just keep at it and they keep winning. So stay tuned. It gets better. What happens after Google? How did he found Relativity6? That's what's coming up next. Stay tuned. It's really cool stuff.